right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I am biased, but I think this is going to be one of the best, probably the best session of Meridian.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think. Well, I guess you did one earlier today, so probably that one was the best one. This is the second best one. Yeah.
They're tied.
Okay. Well, why don't we refresh everyone in the room in case they didn't catch your first one on who you are as a person, and then we'll talk about Chipper.
Yeah, hi again. I'm Tefiro Serunjogi, born and raised in Uganda. Grew up there my whole life and moved to the US for college many years ago now. And I've been in the US since with a stint in London. I've been in the payment space my whole career, first with MasterCard, so I guess a little TradFi in my background. Joined Chipper 3 years ago where I lead our product side. That's me. And then I guess, that's me. That's me.
All right. Well, that's a good person to be leading product at Chipper. So why don't you tell us what Chipper does?
Yes. So Chipper Cash is an African fintech platform that began 6 years ago, initially as a peer-to-peer money movement service, essentially trying to solve the problem of how do Africans move money across borders and between platforms. So these being mobile money platforms. We have since grown to offer more than just that. So we offer both, again, money movement, we offer prepaid virtual cards, we offer stocks, so you can actually invest in the US stock market via our app, we offer crypto, we offer bills and payments for services, amongst a host of other services. We also do have a B2B business side that I can speak to afterwards, but our primary focus right now is the consumer side as a business.
That's a lot. For anyone who's been sleeping, Chipper has been one of the biggest names in African fintech for, I don't know, at least like 3-ish years.
Yeah, 3 to 4 years, yeah.
Yeah. And I'll also say this is personal for me because I built one of the early predecessors that did not have all of that functionality, but a wallet that was peer-to-peer and had a lot of the same goals and vision. And I learned very quickly that sometimes it is not the most pleasant experience to be the early mover. You can be too early. But I like to think that it paved the way for products like Chipper.
It definitely did.
And we like to see everyone succeed, so that's great. But there's still that tension. So tell us about innovating in markets that are not necessarily ready for that.
Yeah, sure. First thing I'll say is that innovation requires first movers, so we definitely stand on the shoulders of people like yourself, so don't downplay your...
Tiny shoulders. I'm not going to speak to the giants.
But I think innovating, the way I think about it is that the most important part of our business is thinking about what need are we solving for, right? What does the person or the community that we're serving need? And then how can we use our skills, our tech to serve that need? I think when you begin from that position, you then are better placed to actually build a good product. Because I know many smart folks who can build exciting apps. Very few of those apps actually would serve the needs of our customers. So I always tell my teams, yes, good tech is important, but even better than good tech is a good solution, right? So if the best solution is going to take half the code we require, let's do that. If it requires a less fancy UI, let's do that. Because ultimately, the consumer will signal to you if you're doing the right thing by using your platform again and again, and better still, paying for it. So I think understanding the need that needs to be met, understanding the gap that is still in the market, and then how, with your tech and your skill set, you can serve that need uniquely and bring value that customers are willing to both utilize but also pay for is, I think, a very good signal for how to build products in markets. And again, Africa is 54 countries, so you're having to do this times 54, oftentimes times 10, because in each country you have different regions, different groups of people with different needs. So you're always doing that question of who am I serving, what's their need, and am I still doing that service the way it should be done?
So I actually want to dial in on that piece because I'm looking around the room and I don't see many African builders, so they might not be aware of the types of users that you're serving.
Yep.
Now, I'm guessing that they probably have similar people in their own markets, but tell us a little bit about your user base.
Yeah, I wish it was a monolith. So our users, right, it'd be so much easier to solve for. Our users vary, right? I think they vary first and foremost by what country they're in, right? So we're operational in 5 African countries and the US. So by that alone, you're serving 5 different geographies. Then when you double click on each country, you're serving different individuals in those markets, right? So we have a very strong base of solo entrepreneurs. So sort of people who run their own businesses who need to purchase items in China and bring them to Nigeria. People who are running local business in Nigeria who just need to pay for ads on Facebook. You have individuals who need to just pay for their college applications, right? So it's people who have different needs, but oftentimes the thread that connects them is they have no ability to use their existing funds and their wealth to actually access these increasingly global services that they're trying to utilize for their own local needs. So our user is, I would say, someone who has value and who has money that they've earned, from their work and their life, but who has no access to ways to spend that money in today's very global economy and oftentimes our very online economy. So that's who we're solving for. Then, of course, we do have, like I said, a more business-focused consumer. So this is, more than one person who needs to have a way to manage their business in terms of paying for services that they consume, sometimes even paying payroll. And those needs are a bit different. Again, that's a bit of a different user who needs a different kind of solution, a different kind of interaction in terms of how you support them. So yeah, it's a myriad of users, a myriad of needs within those user bases, and understanding those needs and building for them is sort of the work that we always need to do. And again, also focusing on the ones where you can actually bring value and not everything, because boiling the ocean is a sure, quick way to fail.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love that you just preempted two stereotypes that I hear about building in African markets. Yeah. One, that it's a monolith as a continent, the country of Africa.
The beacon of Africa.
Yeah. But one thing that I found in building for those different markets too is like, even when we talk about cross-border, you think about people who inherently are bridging cultures, they're bridging countries because they have these cross-border transactions. But that doesn't mean that you can treat them as just cross-border people. People are inherently geography-based. They have strong beliefs. They have pride in where they come from, and you have to meet them where they are. So I love that. And then the second part of that you address is that people have money. I mean, I hate that we have to say this, but it's not a question of if people have money. It's a question of if people have access to their money and to be able to free that up to do things around the world that many of us take for granted. So thank you for your work in that. That's wonderful. Because we're at Meridian, let's talk about Stellar a little bit. I have to do my job here. So tell us about the recent MoneyGram integration and how you have creatively leveraged that.
Yeah. So again, going back to the need, right? So MoneyGram has been present in Africa for even longer than we have been active as a company. And historically, there have been a remittance, money movement. I walk into a MoneyGram location in somewhere in the UK, send money to my mom or my dad in Uganda. They walk into an agent, get that money out, and that process can take several days, several weeks, and can oftentimes involve quite a bit of cost. So with our MoneyGram integration, what we're doing is we're saying that the consumer can now actually execute that money receipt or money send from within the Chipper app, right? And on the back end, Stellar is powering in almost real-time settlement between us and MoneyGram, allowing us to actually bring that to life, right? So it's looking at two existing and one legacy platform and saying, how can we bring them together in ways that don't involve building complex and heavy and expensive infrastructure, but then allows them to both do what they do very well in a new way that serves the consumer even better, right? So that's what we're doing with MoneyGram. I think it's a very powerful use case, and I think it bodes well with how can Africa's existing and upcoming fintech players and finance players increasingly work together in ways that actually enhance their offerings to customers without just being competitors, right? It's that I think we can both do something together that makes our individual products better. And having the connective tissue that is the Stellar network, I think makes that a much more viable and actually feasible outcome.
Yeah. Well, and for those of you in this room who might know the MoneyGram Access Program, this is actually different. This is not utilizing that. So that's why I say you've creatively used that to your advantage. Yeah. And I just want everyone to understand, like, this is the beauty of the network, right? Because you don't have to follow the playbook exactly. Right. You can use these tools for however they benefit you and your company. Yeah. So I'm really excited to see where that one goes.
No, we are too. I mean, and I think one thing also that's touching today is also the work that we're doing with Akuna, right? So I think that our work with Stellar and the Stellar network presents an exciting breadth of opportunities and ways that we can begin to reimagine how value flows between not just our customers, but even our partners, and then what that sort of new connective tissue allows us to do in terms of delivering unique solutions that solve problems in ways that previously weren't possible. So I'm very excited. I mean, like I said, I'm always thinking about solutions, and finding good tools makes that much easier, so I'm very excited for this. Yeah.
Let's expand a little bit more on the product side.
Yeah, sure.
Give us
Love
some
that.
more insights. What else is going on in your world right now?
Yeah, so like I said, Cheaper Cash, we offer several products. I would say our most used product right now is our card product, and reason being, again, it's simple in that cards are not new, right? Cards have been around for longer than any of us have been in this business, but access to cards and the access that cards then allow people to have has been very difficult for many people, right? Because predominantly or traditionally, to have a card, you have to go to a bank, have an account, open the account, fund the account. That's a very painful, expensive process in many parts of the world, and that's if there's a bank to work with, right? So we have said, what can we do to essentially allow our customers to, again, have their money, whether it's on their Momo wallet or in their wallet as cash, to actually access the card ecosystem through their mobile phone without having to go through the hassle of actually opening a bank account, doing all that heavy lifting. And in doing so, open up a whole new world for them in terms of now I can spend my money anywhere. I mean, my dad now pays for his Netflix, my uncle's buying things on Amazon. I mean, things which when I was growing up were just absolutely impossible. I mean, I knew of Amazon, I knew of Netflix growing up, but there was no way you could pay for it. There's absolutely no way you could pay for it, even though you could afford to pay for it, right? And I think that, for me, that is an example of how the things we build are actually solving needs that have been ignored, but actually are very powerful for both the merchants on the other end, because Netflix now unlocks a whole new market for themselves, but also for the consumer. You know, I think freedom is being able to express yourself both in how and where you spend, but also with whom you spend, right? And now people can do that. So that's one of our big products. We also do a lot of remittance, so money movement between markets. So the US is a big corridor for us, so folks sending money to Africa. And also, we just launched recently our virtual account. So basically, customers can now actually have a US dollar virtual account, which, again, there's been a big chat about creators. That unlocks payment for people in ways that they just couldn't access otherwise, right? You now can receive dollars on your app anywhere in Africa with the virtual account. That's powerful. And those dollars are now in your app. You can spend them how you want. Send them to a bank, fund your card, or just hold them. Again, it unlocks a whole new set of opportunities for people that they didn't have before. So yeah, those are a few things that we're working on, and a few others that are coming up that hopefully I can share in the near future.
So I have to ask.
Yeah.
Was the goal from the beginning to become the financial super app? Because you are solving needs along the entire spectrum here. Or was it just kind of like, oh,
No,
we can do this?
I think anyone who says the goal was would be lying. I think
Take over the world.
no, I think the goal has become clearer as we've done the work, right? When we began, we were just simply saying people can't move money between borders and between mobile money networks. Let's solve that. Then you do that, and then they begin to signal, oh, by the way, I also want to move money to a merchant in the US. Like, oh, actually, they need a card. And then it's, oh, by the way, I want to invest in stocks in the US because I can afford to. Then you offer stocks. So I think the growth of our product portfolio is a reflection of our consumers' growing demand as they see what's possible on the platform, and also our growing ability to serve that demand. So yeah, I don't think we woke up thinking that we'd become a super app, and I don't think that's been a goal. I mean, tomorrow, if they say we want just one thing, then we should do that, right? So the app and what we offer is a reflection of the consumer need and the consumer demand, as opposed to being solely a reflection of our own ambitions for the consumer. There's a bit of that, but I think ultimately the consumer should be the driving signal for how and what you build.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I find that really interesting because I would not necessarily put your users in the needs financial inclusion category. But if you look at the typical financial inclusion path, it starts with payments and then moves into savings and then lending and then more sophisticated products like insurance.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to some loans, some insurance. It must be coming. It's somewhere down the line.
I am sure more things are coming. I keep thinking that, to me, if I can do one thing well, that's a win. Doing two things mediocrely is not a win. So yeah, I would love for us to solve savings and insurance, but even better still, I'd love someone to solve it better than even we can solve it, if that's what it takes. But yeah, yeah.
That's a word for all of us this morning. I'm like, I wish that more people in the blockchain space would have that attitude. We probably would have a better reputation as an industry. But that's really wonderful, and I think it aligns well with successful companies overall and companies that dignify their consumers. So that's great. Just expanding a little bit, what do you see on the horizon in the payment space, on the continent? I mean, anywhere you want to take this.
Yeah, I think you touched on it when you said sort of what else how will the consumer evolve? I think on the horizon I actually expect that increasingly global merchants are going to begin pushing for consumers to have more access to products like ours in Africa. Because when you think of a global merchant like Netflix, or actually, let's use Netflix. Netflix has been investing heavily in content in Africa, in Asia, in other parts of the world. That content needs to be consumed, right? So if I'm Netflix, I'm thinking, how can I support the downstream consumer to be able to pay for my product? Because that in itself is what's going to drive my return on my investment. So I expect to see an increasing merchant-driven push for consumer products like ours to either be accessible, to be plugged into the ecosystem, merchant-driven rewards to customers. I think there'll be more response from merchants based on the signal that the spend that they're seeing from the efforts we've driven are showing. That'll be a big one. But also I think I expect to see even more movement on the reg side, right? I think increasingly governments...
We almost got through an entire conversation without you mentioning that word.
We're
not going to touch on this.
We have to, though, right?
We have to.
I think that is an inevitable cog that needs to move for the entire engine to actually function, right? And so as consumers signal value being delivered, I think governments and central banks are going to begin to actually be more receptive and actually be champions for this tech. So I think those are two big things that I see. And also, I think where AI meets blockchain and payments is that's something that I think about a lot personally. Think about how can we actually begin to utilize technology to leapfrog some of the heavy lifting that previous dev had to do to bring things to people. So that's a big one for sure. Yeah.
On the regulation point, you can share Chipper. So Chipper is regulated.
Oh yes, we are fully regulated. Yeah. So we were having a chat last night about this, and regulation is very interesting. When you build an app in an emerging market, it's easy to launch day one and get 10 customers or 1,000 customers. The challenge is that when you hit 5,000 or 10,000 or 1 million, you can no longer avoid regulation, right? And regulation is going to fully inform how you build. So for us, regulation actually is part of our product strategy, right? It's how do we get our central banks and our government partners to be on board as we build, because they are going to hold the keys to success and access to our customers. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, something I wish more people would start from the beginning, but that's fine. We'll get there. Okay, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I think you've already given us a good sense of your ethos in this,
Yeah.
but I am too passionate about building products for real people in real places not to mention this. So share your wisdom with us. How do you build products for real people in real places? 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think it's understanding what the pain is. And just a quick backstory, as I said, I went to college in the US. When I was applying to college from Uganda, I realized I had to pay for things like the SAT and pay for college application fees. And at that time, I had no credit card, and neither did my dad. So we would actually send my uncle in the UK money, right, via bank transfer. It would take 4 to 5 days. I would then get on a call with him that would cost at least 10,000 shillings every 5 minutes to walk him through logging into my application and paying for it. So it would take me at least a week and a half to just pay for my SATs. 2 years ago, when I joined Chipper and I launched our card product, I was looking at some of our early customers, and I saw a user who would, in 5 minutes, had gotten the app, done the KYC, got a card, and paid the college deposit. In 5 minutes, right? I could look at the logs, 5 minutes. That person has done that in 5 minutes in the comfort of their home. And that could have been me, if I had that app 10 years ago. And I think that is how you build good products, right? It's understanding the need and the pain point in a very deep and personal way, and then leveraging your skill sets, your networks to then build something that brings value in ways that weren't possible before. So,
amazing.
Yeah, empathy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tefiro. Thanks so much for everyone for coming.
Thank you.